Oh, it's a big game coming up, Scott Saunders. It's a big game coming up. Welcome back to Rule the Roost pod, mate. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to give you a hospital pass off the bat, mate.
Great.
I'm going to ask you, right? Because a lot of the rhetoric, Amarim said it, Scholes has said it, Neville said it. This doesn't really matter to Man United. If they win this, it's still a bad season, blah, 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 blah. Do you think it's partly this mentality, which is no doubt emboldened by the glories of the Alex Ferguson era, but do you think it's partly this mentality that has seen what has been an incredibly successful decade for Manchester United, really, in truth? But do you think it's partly this mentality that still sees Manchester United as quite a miserable place optically from the outside?
It's so miserable. It's so miserable. And not even winning this game it'll give people a nice relief, I'll say. And it'll give people this summer of hope and optimism. And it'll give the people who are traveling out to this game a moment. I think it's raining out there, I've seen today. I was going to say a moment in the sun, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. And I think United are just always in this place of they just can't escape the misery. And part of me is looking at this game and thinking, do I want to engage in the chat of like, if Man United or Tottenham win this game, ha ha ha, we had a better season than Arsenal. United have so much work to do. And I'm more of an optimist. I think that they can do it. I look at the people that have been put in place to do the changes, and I think we got more of a chance now than we did with Ed Woodward doing transfers. But it'll take time, and it is just incredibly miserable because you've got all that 99 or the class of 92 generation and Roy Keane on TV and all of these people saying this is Manchester United, and this is what it should be, and they are not that team. They're held up to these standards, but they're 16th in the league. We'll see if they finish 16th or 17th. I'm banking on 17th personally, but we'll see.
Really? Don't know about that, mate.
Who have you got left?
Brighton at home.
Brighton at home.
Who are chasing European football.
Yeah, maybe they'll go and beat you. Yeah, maybe 16th. The glory of 16th. Then we'll see.
Do you think this is? Let me put it to you in a fair way. Do you think it's more of a football problem? Do you think it's more of a football problem, or the way football is spoken about now, that Manchester United are so routinely kind of held up as almost like this sort of example of being an abject failure ever since Ferguson's left? And I will admit this, I get caught into it myself. I say, "Oh, Man United aren't that kind of good anymore." But then I look at it, I'm like, if Spurs had won what forget Spurs, if Arsenal had won what Manchester United had won in the last decade, they'd see it as an incredibly successful era. Spurs would see it as one of their most successful eras probably in their history. Yet still, the way Manchester United are spoken about, and like I say, I do think the way they speak about themselves is that they're abysmal. And I don't know. It's
do you know what I think it is, right? Having worked in media and in publishing for a decade and seeing the numbers, if you say something positive about Man United fans will eat it up. If you say something negative about Man United fans will read it or watch it, and everybody else will read it or watch it and enjoy it. That's the difference, really. So every single opportunity to stick the boot into Manchester United, possible, and they give a hell of a lot of reasons to do that at the moment as well. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of it. And I think that's what it is. It's just it's a machine that feeds it. It's what's the description? It's like a cycle where it just never ends. They need to find a way to end it, and ultimately that's by doing things better on the pitch. But what they've done is they've got a manager in November who is has succeeded in football by having a high energy football team, and Man United have gone and bought a low energy football team who can't run. So, it'll take some time.
Are you a fan of his? Are you a fan of what Amarin's done or doing?
I'm not a fan of what he's doing in the league because it's miserable. I want to see. People say, is he too honest? And he can be at times, and maybe that works against him. But I just want to see somebody in that position who tells it like it is and doesn't lie to protect himself. I think he's actually in it for actually fixing this. I think he relishes the challenge of fixing this. Sporting just won the league at the weekend. He could have stayed and won the league, but he wanted to come into this club and be the guy. And that's the appeal for everybody who takes this job, be the guy to turn it around. I do think it's going to take a lot of stripping back the players on the wages, the reasons that they're at the football club. I think they've got to get rid of that. I think there's a cultural rot in the football club, and I like what Amorim is identifying. I like that, as whatever you might think about Marcus Rashford, I think he's probably fed up of being at Manchester United and being in this miserable mess. So if he didn't want to give his all, off you go. And I think that's what United need, and I think Amorim will see that through. Hopefully, anyway.
Can you explain? I mean, like, I just mean it in a rhetorical sense, really, as opposed to like a prescriptive sense. Can you explain your league season this year? Like, has there been a real sort of root cause? Because I find it even hard as a Spurs fan, to be honest, to explain how bad our season has been. But again, I'm of the vintage where I've seen Manchester United be essentially an impossible team to beat, and would just win everything all the time, constantly. And if you'd have told 10, 15, probably even 20-year-old me that Manchester United one day would be finishing 16th, losing nearly 20 games in a league campaign, I mean, it's historically terrible. It's so bad. And it feels like you talk there about a cultural issue, a cultural rot. Is this what it is? Is this taking hold? A mentality thing? You still got good players.
And I know, and like you see Scott McTominay go into Napoli and having an amazing season, and Rashford who went to Villa, and everyone goes, "Oh, Marcus Rashford's amazing." Like he actually scored more goals for United this season than Aston Villa.
Wow, that's quite good. That's quite
and like that again. That's media and that's spin. He did something good against PSG, but also he lost the ball, which led to a goal. So like it's that's just the way that it is. But in the league season, I think United's problem was that they in the summer last year they appointed. Well, Dan Ashworth came in, right, and he was the sporting director, and he was meant to mesh together with everyone. They ended up sticking with Ten Hag. Ten Hag then just was going to carry on with not playing a midfield, which was a massive problem for about 18 months or whatever it was. And then Dan Ashworth leaves. So that they had that opportunity to reset last summer and weren't decisive enough in order to do it. And this malaise kind of set upon them. And I think when Ashworth went, whenever it was, everyone was really rocked by that. But what Erik ten Hag had inherited was a team which is just completely not suited to what Amorim wants to do. And there was a point where I think Amorim came in and United were like 4 points off fourth place or something. And like Amorim's record in the league is disgusting. It's absolutely awful. But for me, I'm looking at this season and I'm thinking, this is just, I know there's standards and United can't finish 16th, but I kind of feel like they need an absolute rotter of a season to reset everything. And there was a point where after they'd lost a few games under Amorim, and like November and December were difficult, and you put that down to the system and what Amorim wants to do and making the changes in mid-season. By the time they'd come through that phase, they didn't really have anything to play for in the league anymore. And I think as well, the fact that they've got a strike force which is just completely not functioning should be a big hope for Spurs in this game, actually, because like you sign a 22-year-old forward and then just lump all of the responsibility on him, and then he's drowning under the pressure now as well, not scoring goals. It's just moved into nothing. And it's like every week I look at the fixture and I'm like, oh, how are they going to lose this one? Like, how do you lose to West Ham at home? You know, by if they'd scored first goals in some of these matches, maybe the results would have been different. But we're at a point now, and have been for a few months, where the players know they've got nothing to play for but the Europa League. And I think they even said it in a few of the interviews ahead of the match as well. So, like, I don't know how. I'm so glad that the season's coming to an end in the Premier League anyway. But I think you might. I do think you might get a bit of a different United team on Wednesday.
You imagine? I mean, do you? I'll be quite interested to hear your perspective on the whole mentality, club DNA thing, because so much of the conversation right now, especially from, say, Sky, Carragher, Neville, TalkSport, if you put TalkSport on, or, you know, Radio 5 Live, anything basically, any of the kind of the sort of chatty analysis-based programs, the line is basically, Tottenham don't win games like this, Manchester United win games like this. Yes, Spurs have won 3 times this season against United, but it goes out the window in a cup final. I mean, how much do you buy into it? Do you believe in like club DNA and all this type of thing?
Not so much that, but I think that I think I'm going into this game thinking Spurs will win. Like, I've got to be honest, seeing the way that United have played against Spurs with Amorim a couple of times. I do think a lot of this is pointing to it's Tottenham's time, you know. But I look at the United team, and I said just now about maybe seeing a different United in this competition. I just look at the team and think, in a one-off, like last season, United were terrible and went the FA Cup final against Man City, and put in. They were great on the day, absolutely great on the day. And for the record, by the way, I thought they would win that game. I don't think they'll win this one. So we'll see how it goes. But I think that players like Casemiro, for example, like, and the arc of leave football before the football leaves you. Like, how can somebody who used to play football come out on TV and tell like a multiple-time Champions League winning player just leave football? Like, it's mad. Isn't that mad? Like, that's what it's come to nowadays. And I think Amrim's made some tweaks to get the best out of him. And I if there's any player on the pitch, really, United have match winners, you know, and there is that hope from my side that somebody will come up trumps. Like, Ahmad is threatening, Garnacho can do it. Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro are the two guys, really, or Harry Maguire if he goes up front at some point.
I think Bruno is comfortably, sorry to say, but comfortably the best player on the pitch as well.
Absolutely.
Bruno Fernandes, yeah.
So, and United lost a Europa League final in 2021 on penalties as well. And there's a lot of those players in this team.
Valencia?
Villarreal. Yeah. So, Ahmad's lost a Europa League final with Rangers as well.
Was it Valencia you beat in the final? With Mourinho?
Ajax.
Oh, was it? Oh, yeah, it was. It was the Ajax
team 2 years before Spurs beat them. Yeah, the De Ligt and Onana and De Jong team.
Yeah,
when they were very, very young. But that's the one hope that I do have, is there are players who, when they know they're in a big game, you see something different. But I'm so scarred by this season that I can't, with any confidence, go and say that I think United will win. And, Tottenham have a good record against United recently. Well, I don't think the last time United beat them was when Ronaldo stormed off. I think.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Which is, 2-3 seasons ago now, I think.
Absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
and that was a great performance under Ten Hag, and Ronaldo walked off and everyone was like, well, that's the headline.
I'd be quite interested to hear your perspective from the outside, actually. Now you're talking about Ten Hag, because obviously so much has been made of Ange Postecoglou. Is his time coming to an end at the club? It's been, a historically bad season even for Spurs. But we do find ourselves in this position, as United did with Ten Hag and the FA Cup last year, where if he does go and win the Europa League this year, ends Tottenham's 17-year trophy drought, I think it makes it a much harder proposition to sack that guy. And a lot of people are kind of reporting on it like it's almost done. But I tend to err on the side of caution, as a few kind of other Spurs pods and commentators and such have said, in that I think it's very easy to say this in a cold, pragmatic, business-like sense. But if you've just beaten Manchester United in the Europa League final, a major trophy by anybody's standards, and definitely by Spurs' standards, you've taken that cup down the Tottenham High Road. Thousands, probably hundreds, tens of hundreds of thousands of people have shown up on the Tottenham High Road to greet the homecoming heroes, all that type of thing. And Ange Postecoglou's there lifting up that cup. And all those players have run through brick walls for him in this competition. Can you sack that guy? Can Daniel Levy sack that guy? Whether or not he should, I mean, is up for interpretation. But what do you think?
It's been really interesting because there are so many parallels with Ten Hag. Is like literally a year ago, there were reports before that FA Cup final of Ten Hag will leave regardless of whether he wins or not, and then he goes and wins. They go and interview a bunch of other managers and then end up sticking with him. I don't know. I think the problem, they have a lot in common, actually. That the way that they demanded their players play football, the energy, the pressing, the intensity, probably leads to Tottenham have had a rotten injury record this year. United had a rotten injury record last year. And that intensity probably ends up leading to a good few injuries, which are going to leave you short. And I think Tottenham had a substantial period this season where they had so many players out. You just thought, like, maybe when all these come back, everything will fix up. But it just gets to this time now where Tottenham have a real chance of winning this trophy. I watch Ange in speaking to the press and stuff, and he does cut a bit of a miserable figure at times. I don't know, but what does he want to do? No, I know he's got a contract, but it might be the case of, right, I won this. I've been getting. He's talking about the stick that he's getting all the time, and the stick that Tottenham are getting all the time. Maybe it'll be a nice, I'm off. This is the right time to go from his perspective. I don't know, but will Tottenham back him? I think that's a massively important thing. Like, I think I saw some suggestions recently that they weren't going to have too much money to spend in the summer. Is that right? I don't know whether Champions League affects that or whatever, but he would need more players.
I think a lack of European football in general will affect us. And look, I'm never really that up on the full ins and outs of this side of stuff, but my very basic understanding is that Tottenham are not cash rich. We've got lots of assets and everything, but the way in which a lot of our deals are structured, all that type of thing, we still owe tens of millions, probably hundreds of millions in transfer fees from players that people thought were in and already accounted for, and blah, 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 So I think that's the issue that Spurs face right now.
I do feel, I look at Ange and I feel for him a bit. But I think he doesn't help himself sometimes either. So I look at this and I think, like, can Tottenham do it, and will they actually do it? And who are they going to go and get if they're not going to commit to backing a manager and spending money and bringing new players in? Would they risk changing? It's a really weird position for Tottenham. I'm not sure.
Let me. I'm going to ask you the same question of both clubs, Scott, and I'm just interested to hear your thoughts, because a lot again is being made of who is this cup more important to. So I'm going to say to you first and foremost, why is winning on Wednesday night more important for Manchester United?
Because financial oblivion awaits if they don't. I think people are making this. I think, how much do they get? Like 100 million plus for winning this game? If you take in the winnings from the Europa League and then qualification for the Champions League and the amount of games you play in it, 100 million quid, 120 million or whatever it is. United are, you talk about transfer fees being owed out. United have so many, I can't remember exactly, but it's multiple hundreds of millions owed in transfer fees. They have a massive wage bill, which if they win this game will increase because they have clauses in their contracts of 25% increases if they're playing in the Champions League. That in itself, I look at that and I think, why? Why are you doing that? That just incentivizes coming fourth or fifth, you know? Get rid of that. Get rid of it. I look at it and I'm very, very much in the minority. But I think if United don't win this game, it might actually lead them. I mentioned a reset earlier. They might just have to sell some really good players and just be smart with reinvesting money. I don't think anyone's off the table. I worry about Bruno Fernandes. You know, like he signed a new contract last year and was sold this promise of Man United will get back to the top with a manager that then sacked after 9 games. I know that he gets on with Amorim, this kind of thing. But if he's got an offer to make life-changing money and United can make 120, 150 million or however much it is off selling him to Saudi Arabia and he wants to do it because he's had enough of this nonsense, I would not blame him at all. And that, you could argue, is where it all falls down because he is the heartbeat of the team. He's the best player on the pitch. Their captain, you know? So
it's quite funny.
All this is at risk.
Yeah, you've kind of got that... I think there's a few parallels there with him and Harry Kane, really, in the respect that they are both, like you say, they're the beating heart of the team, as Kane was with Spurs. And just his age and the amount that he would cost to get out of United kind of protects you in a way. Because would somebody like Real Madrid have a home? Would Bruno Fernandes add value to Real Madrid? I think he absolutely would. A club of that size. Would he even, I hate to say it to you, mate, but would he even add value to a club like Manchester City? Kevin De Bruyne again. Yes, he absolutely would. But would Manchester United let him go to either of those teams for less than £80 million at the very least? Absolutely not. And I think those kind of clubs aren't probably going to pay that for a 30-year-old.
Yeah.
But then they might just, as Bayern Munich did, they might just suddenly think, actually, you know what? Because he would be one of those signings, wouldn't he, for a club of that size where people would think, people can come out with what I just have there. But then if they did go and do it, everyone would be like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, he's really good. He's really, really good. And he's shown that in this United side for years now, quite how good he is. I constantly lament the fact that we didn't manage to get that one over the line. You know, he was like
mad, isn't it?
Pochettino's. Yeah, he was one of Pochettino's earmarked. I have to have this guy. I think Bruno's even come out himself and said, "Yeah, I was well up for going to Tottenham. I'd had conversations with them, and I think it fell down probably on wages, and we ended up with Giovanni Lo Celso. You know, it's just
he scored a goal the other day.
He scored a very good goal, actually. Yeah.
Him and Anthony absolutely tearing.
Anthony has literally turned into Cristiano Ronaldo out there. It's really quite wild.
Like I said the other day, where I was doing a stream, and he'd scored while I was on the stream, and I said, "Oh, did he score another 30-yard rocket?" And it turns out he actually did. It was like a free kick. I was like, "What the hell? What the hell's up with this guy?" Just escape the abyss that is this Manchester United and you become whole again.
I often I am going to ask you what is more important to Tottenham in a second, don't worry. But I often have this thing that I sort of rabbit on about on here because I notice there's often a pattern where Manchester United, Liverpool, before they decided to get really good again, even Arsenal, Chelsea, many of the clubs that basically make up the sort of the historic big four, big six latterly. You can be in pig form and you can lose to, like you say, a West Ham at home or somebody like that. But I often find that Spurs, at least, I think the Premier League, the makeup of the Premier League is changing now. Like Villa coming back into things, Newcastle coming back into things, Brighton up there. But at least, let's just say the past decade or so, Spurs have always occupied this fairly unique place where we've been way better than everyone below us, but still definitely the runt of the litter of the big six, if you like. And we had a good period under Maurizio Pochettino and everything like that. But we still weren't getting stuff over the line and all that type of thing, right? And I often tend to find that when you sort of guys are in like really bad form, when Spurs come to town, if you like, there's often a bit of a gear shift where you lot are kind of like, well, look, anybody can lose to a Norwich or to a Brentford. That just kind of happens. But when it's Spurs, this is kind of our benchmark. We actually just have to kind of make sure we're still at least hitting par. And hitting par is just being better than Spurs still. So we still have to kind of put them in their place and let them know that we're still better than them. And even if we've got issues, we have to turn up for this one. And that might just be me as a Spurs fan kind of thinking the world revolves around us. But do you kind of get what I'm saying with that?
Yeah, I do. They haven't done it very well recently, in the games that have been in the league or in the cup or whatever. But I do think you might be onto something there, and I think the fact that it is in such a massive final for both clubs, like this competition, I'll probably I'll refer to it now. Actually, I was going to talk about it when you were going to ask me about the Tottenham, what it means to them. This competition is so downplayed. This competition's brilliant. I actually think it's brilliant and has been brilliant for it's 50 years. I think Tottenham the first winners of this competition.
Yeah, we were, yeah.
Some of the clubs that have won it, Juventus, Real Madrid, Manchester United, massive, massive football clubs. And the trophy's lovely as well. I think for me, it's one of the best trophies in football. It's just so and just because it's been rebranded as Europa, it just sounds a bit tin pot, doesn't it? Like outside of when it was the UEFA Cup, it was the UEFA Cup, when we were growing up and you saw like teams at the turn of the century winning it. It had something. I think it's been downgraded a little bit, but it really, really matters. And I can't remember what I was talking about. I just wanted to make that point. But I think the fact that it is a major final, the fact that it is a Premier League rival, the fact that the United players have had such a crap season, I think they will turn up, right? I think they will turn up. I think they will give it a good go. I think the reasons that they might not win is because of deficiencies in the team rather than actually trying. So we'll see how it goes. But I think that wanting to make a statement against Tottenham is probably valid, especially because Tottenham have beaten them the last 3 times or however many times. They have points to prove. Everybody does.
I think sort of on that point about the devaluing of the competition. I am interested to know that I guess I should speak to a foreign football writer or something for this one, but I do wonder how much of that is just devalued in the eyes of us because of essentially who set the narrative in this country, what broadcasting establishments and such have set the narrative on what's important here. Because I do think for quite some time, we're always bemoaning, why doesn't anyone care about the FA Cup and all that type of stuff? It's like, well, the enemy comes from within on that one, lads. Like, the same people bemoaning why does nobody care about the FA Cup are the same people that will say, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because it's, when United, for example, win an FA Cup, they'll all be saying, well, yeah, but I think they'll still be disappointed with their season, all that type of thing. And I tend to think when you look at a club like Sevilla that have won it, I think 7, 8, 9 times, they've won it a record amount of times. They give their all to that competition. It means everything to them. And I think you would see a club like you say, growing up, we'd see an Ajax win it, or I think Dortmund have won it. I think an Inter have won it. All these huge, big, European clubs have all won this competition, and they all go mad and they all love it. And I do just sometimes think, I think in this country we've got a bit of a weird superiority complex, and I see why a lot of kind of foreign clubs actually kind of hate English clubs and English football, because we do have this weird superiority complex. And maybe that's because Liverpool have got such a huge kind of pedigree in the Champions League, and United too, to a lesser extent, and Chelsea have won it a couple of times. That we're just so high on the smell of our own farts of the Premier League's so great, it's so amazing. When you look at it this year and you're like, is it actually that great? And should we just sacrifice all joy in football that isn't winning the Premier League or winning the Champions League? Because that makes for a pretty miserable experience.
Yeah, I know all of this, like, oh, 16th versus 17th, and the winner will get a place in the Champions League and win a trophy. Get rid of it all. Like, shut up. I know why you're doing it. Just shut up. You can't tell me that the team coming in fifth and not winning anything is just because they've been more consistent in a league season. You can't tell me that's a better season. It's maybe with a team that's challenging for the title or a team that comes second, maybe that's a conversation you can have. But like that, we should live like people forget. Like you see Crystal Palace win the FA Cup, and what that means to people. All the joy, and I think we talked about the media in the earlier in the pod. It just sucks all the joy out of everything. And it's super important that, like, and I've been saying this on the pod that I do as well. Like, if you're going out there, both teams, United and Spurs, go out there and have fun.
Yeah.
And if you win, that's going to be a moment that you remember forever. Even for for me, I'll forever remember where I was and that kind of thing. But especially for Tottenham, if you're out there, if you're not, if you're with your mates, if you're on your own or whatever, like, you will remember that moment forever if you win that trophy, just because of how massive it is. You live for these kind of moments, and I think the press does a really good job of downplaying all those moments. But then you see when it happens, when you see a club that hasn't won anything for ages win something, or ever, like in Palace's case, it just reminds you, like, oh, that's why we like football.
Yeah.
you know.
And this is kind of because what you touched on there is kind of to carry on with my Spurs victim mentality, but is why it's kind of triggering, because we had, when we were finishing second, third, Champions League pretty much every season, going deep in the Champions League as well, pretty much every year, we still had Gary Neville was one of the main architects of this, who would say, well, it doesn't matter because they're not winning anything. But now this year that we're on the verge of winning a cup, he is literally saying the other thing now. Well, it doesn't matter if they win something, they've had a terrible league season. Which one is it, mate? Like, which one is it? When are we allowed to be happy?
Yeah.
When our football club does something? But you almost have to, and it's so frustrating, but you almost have to look at it as in, like, it was Flav on the Fighting Cock who made this point really well. Is like, when you just realise suddenly it's just about currency. It's just about the opinion opinions are valuable, right? Opinions are the things that will make money. Opinions are the things, if people are clicking, watching, whatever. And I know It's trite, and I know we all know this, but when you actually think about what that actually means, as opposed to just saying clickbait, when you actually think about what it means, it's like, okay, we're in this position now. How do we make the most money out of Manchester United, a classically brilliant, incredible club that wins everything, who are now finding themselves in a cup final of the knockdown version of the Champions League and not doing very well in the league? How do we monetize that? And Tottenham, the club that haven't won anything for ages and ages and ages and continue to kind of fall at the last hurdle. How do we monetize that now that they're not doing very well in the league because Pochettino's gone and whatever? And it's just, that's all it is. It's just about, it's not actual opinions. It's how to make money.
It's so cynical, but that is the way that it is. Like, coming from this line of work, that is the way that it is. And that is the way that it'll be forever, really. Well, unless something completely falls down. Like, the thing that sells is negativity, like in general. And I look at it and I just try not to put any kind of stock in any of that. I just don't get ticked off by it anymore. Like, I'll get ticked off by my team being crap and losing, but if I can't watch coverage either side of matches anymore, because I know what's happening. I know what's going to come, and it's so see-through and it's so irritating. And like on my pod, I try and hammer that point home quite often. But yeah, like, we should look at this game, and whoever wins it, whoever's going, or like wherever you're watching it, like, cherish the moment. Like, it's a big deal. Like, ultimately it'll suck for the loser. It's going to. But somebody's got to lose. So,
why do you think this game is more important to Tottenham, Scott?
Touched on it already, but it's because of what it'll mean to people. Like that's the one thing that Tottenham have. And I saw a video of like the Tottenham social team just got all of the players to say what this game means. I don't know if you've seen it, but I've watched it. And just being there and like Son having the chance to remember everyone's taking the mick out of Harry Kane for going to Bayern and not winning anything in his first season, and now he's just gone and won the league. Well, Son's still there, and it's his moment to do it with Spurs this time. I think it's like I remember the last time Spurs won a trophy, and it was a hell of a long time ago. Not to not to kind of rub it in or whatever, because one of my closest mates is a Spurs fan as well. And it's just such. You're all so defeated.
It's wild, you know. Like as I keep saying on here, I was like 22 when we won that. I'm now 40. You know, like, where did that go?
Crazy, but I think that's it. Like, you know, I have a lot of Spurs friends actually, and everyone's so buzzing for it, as you should be, because this is a chance to. This is something you'll remember forever. Even if Spurs went and, let's say Spurs miraculously got good and then won 3 trophies in 3 years over the next 3 seasons, you always remember that first one, you know? Always. And it's about like creating moments for like the Palace fans the other day, winning that, like they'll remember it forever. And that's what it's about for Spurs, I think. And as much as it's nice to be there and that kind of thing, you've had so many kind of false dawns. I was there at the Champions League final, and you see like all the hope die when you get a crap handball given against you within, how long was it? Like 90 seconds or whatever it was.
Not even that, mate. It was about 26 seconds, I think.
26 seconds. Really? Yeah. Crazy. And it just like completely popped the balloon, and all the hope was really dried up because it was Liverpool, you know. But it means a lot to Spurs because it's that moment to finally set things right. Not necessarily whether you'll build on this and go from strength to strength, I don't know, but it's about moments. Football's about moments.
Yeah.
As much as you can like scroll through your social media timeline and think, oh God, like, oh, this transfer is going to happen. Let's get my fix off this transfer that we're getting. And then he ends up flopping, and you sell him for nothing in 2 years' time, or you send him out on loan and have to pay half his wages or whatever.
So you've been following Tottenham's transfer business over the past few years?
Well, yeah, you know. Yeah. That's just, I think everything's changed, and the noise around football has changed so much that everyone lives online now, and you get so dug into what somebody has said or some nonsense, some account with 300,000 followers and like just a picture of a manager on it has said like some wild opinion, and you think, is this what it is? No, that's not what it is. The moment, these are the moments, you know. It's about making sure that if you can deliver it. And look, I'll be sad that United lose, but if United do lose, I'll be sad that United lose, but I'll look at it and I'll be like, nah, you've been waiting for that, so I can't begrudge it. Unless some kind of awful decision means that we lose, and then I'm really, really angry about it. I'm not sure yet.
I kind of want it to go that way. Just I'm still bitter about the Pedro Mendes goal at Old Trafford.
I saw that the other day. I saw that goal the other day. United put it on one of their channels, actually. I think it was on their YouTube channel, and it was with Højlund. It was with Rasmus Højlund. He'd never seen the goal before.
Oh, had he
never
not?
Seen that goal before. But yeah, United, there was that game where you went like 2-0 up or something, and then United had a dodgy penalty, and United won 5-2 or at Old Trafford when...
No, 3-0 at White Hart Lane. That
3-0 at White Hart Lane.
That was literally the lads it's Tottenham game.
That was that one, but there was one at Old Trafford like 10 years later or something like that as well, or in 2009 or 2008 or something. And I think United had the dodgiest penalty ever. And then they went...
Oh, is this... Well, we had the other weird one as well when Nani like stole the... Aurelio Gomez just like inexplicably put the ball down in front of him, and Nani was like, okay,
I remember that.
Score then. You know what I mean? And it was one of those things where Spurs were all like, he's done something wrong, and it was like, no, he hasn't. It's just Gomez has weirdly put the ball down for some reason, thinking that.
I think I can, like, I look at this and I think I like, as a club, I quite like Spurs. And maybe it's because I have mates who I don't think will go ha 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 like in a message afterwards. If you do that, then fine, I'll let you have it. But
Nah.
but I kind of I wouldn't begrudge it if they do win. But I think it's United have had these moments before, like even in their worst period, and it's that opportunity for Tottenham awaits. So I can't call it though. I just have this gut feeling that I do think Tottenham will win, but there's something in me as well that thinks these players on the United side might actually turn up for once as well. So I'm very much fence sitting, I suppose.
Do you know it's funny because I've been stupidly confident, I would say, since we got to the final and we heard that you were getting to the final. I was kind of like, yeah, I think we're gonna do United. I think it's gonna mean way more to us. I think for all the stuff we're talking about, I think as soon as I saw Heung-min say, well, it's still gonna be a bad season if we win it, and you look at Spurs and we're getting giddy over it and we're really pumped for it. We're really, really up for it. Realise the magnitude of what it is that we could do here. I was kind of like, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And it's just the past few days, I've suddenly just had this voice in my head that's like, you know how this ends. Like when I could just see Spurs players lying on the pitch, dejected, walking past the trophy again, and I'm just like, oh.
All the noise out of United last few days as well has been like, nobody remembers the loser. Like, whereas I think it maybe is kind of about the occasion for Spurs, probably more because United got a lot of finals, right? But with United, they're making it very clear. The players are saying this, the manager's saying this. We have to win. Like, it won't save the season, but we have to win for whatever reason, whether that's financial reason or for the moment or for whatever. We have to win. So I think that'll be the message that's going in there. The only other thing that is, as well, I think United have depth now. Not good depth,
Yeah.
but depth, because none of these players are playing particularly well outside of Bruno Fernandes, but they do have depth. And I was trying to see which 11 I think will start the game. And I was like, well, he could be back from injury. He could be back from injury. What will he do in midfield? Who's he going to start up front? The only place they don't have depth is at centre forward. So there's options all over the pitch. And I do think United have the ability to make changes during the game, probably more so than Spurs do at the moment with the injuries that they've got to like Kulusevski and Maddison. And will Bergvall play, or is he out?
It's just.
I'm seeing a lot of like, he could play. He could play.
I think if he can play, it will be a cameo because I don't know. I think people are overthinking it a bit. I think there's a lot of Postecoglou's playing it down. He's keeping him as the ace up his sleeve, and I mean the kid was on crutches. He had his foot in a boot just a couple of weeks ago. He's been tentatively playing on grass for the past few days. I mean, the thing is as well, he's been great. He's been a brilliant debut season, but I'm still not even convinced he's like a match winner though. As well, at the same time, I think we're kind of clutching at straws there. I think losing Maddison and Kulusevski is pretty massive. Like it really is quite massive. It also looks like Sarr might be missing too, he's not had the best season, but still has a lot of talent in there. He still has the knack of, he's maybe like one of the few players outside of Pedro Porro who can just crop up with like a 25, 30 yarder here and there. Mathis Tell has,
there's some narrative there.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a moment in him. I think he has got a moment in him. I think he's very, very talented, and we're yet to see something from him. Sonny, not fully fit. Will he start the game? Will he not? I mean, let me put this to you, Scott. Like, does the idea of a half or say 3/4 fit Son Heung-min starting against Manchester United scare you as much as seeing, say, a deadlocked Manchester United Spurs game 1-1, 0-0 in the 70th minute? Then you see Son Heung-min warming up on the sideline. I mean, what sort of
that's
probably what worries you more?
Yeah, that's probably a little bit worse. I would say the latter option, just because he's not the player he was, and regardless of fitness issues, injury issues, or whatever, but he's still got that experience. You know that he can take a chance if he gets one, and I look at him and Solanke as well. Solanke scores a lot against United for Bournemouth. I think he scored against United a few times for Spurs as well, or once or twice. I can't remember. The Spurs have threats in their team, and I don't know where Son will play if he does. What answer do you have if you haven't got like a Kulusevski or a Maddison? Does he play in the middle, even if he's barely ever played there before, or does he come off the bench? Might be the best option. That would certainly be the one that scares me the most. Is if it's 1-1 or whatever it is, and not 70 minutes. It's like, all right, we'll bring him on now. That's a prospect.
Yeah. How do you think you'll line up, Scott?
Nana, honestly, thinking of all the reasons United could lose, he's a big one. He will play, obviously, and he's United's best keeper outside of Tom Heaton, but Tom Heaton's not going to play, obviously. I think he'll play. I think Yoro will be okay from what I've heard. So I think I put him and Maguire and Luke Shaw as my starting three because it's a 3-5-2 or whatever. I think you go Mazraoui, Casemiro, Bruno 8, probably. With Tottenham's lack of like attacking thrust through the midfield with the players they've got out, I think that's a risk Amorim can take. Playing Bruno Fernandes a bit deeper because it gives United an extra option from deep.
Yeah.
Dorgu as well. I think Mount's played his way in. He'll probably start with Ahmad and Højlund up front. But United can do a lot of things. Like I've mentioned De Ligt there. He could be in the picture. Garnacho I haven't mentioned. You've got Ugarte who could play, and usually what he's done in the Europa League or in matches United need to win is go Casemiro, Ugarte and play Bruno further forward. But I think with Mount's reemergence, I think that's a risk that he can take. I don't know. He might go with that. But I talked about options earlier, and maybe not great ones because not a lot of these players are actually on fire. United do have lots of different ways and not really an established 11 for me at the moment. So that would be the 11 I think he'll go with. You've got the option of playing Ahmad at wing back as well, but you can probably do that later on in the game if United need a goal or whatever. You can bring Garnacho on in that place, and you can switch Dorgu to the other side, play Luke Shaw left wing back if you want a bit more experience, if another centre-back's free. So I worry about if Lindelof plays, which is a potential if Lenny Yoro isn't able to make it. Him, Onana, Maguire, you saw in the last game, as much as he's been a hero throughout this season in the Europa League or whatever, like his carelessness on the ball led to Athletic scoring a goal from 25 yards in the second leg.
He's still got that bozo in him, doesn't he?
He has. So Spurs will always have their chances because there's a lot of bozo in this team. But there's also a lot of match winners. So could go either way on the night.
If United win, Scott, are you going to try and get press accreditation to the celebratory barbecue? Or
to be fair, like again, this is another example of like meltdown in the media. Like United aren't going to do a trophy like parade for winning the Europa League when they've come 16th, and I don't think any fan expects them to. If it was the Champions League, it'd be different, obviously, because of the status of the competition. But I don't think they can. And if they did that, everyone would go like, Man United had a trophy parade for finishing 16th and winning the Europa League. Well, how the standards have fallen.
Yeah.
So, like, I love barbecues, though. So maybe I'd love to go. I do love barbecues.
I see they're good. They're low carb friendly a lot of the time as well, aren't they? Which is it's very good. No, mate. Look, we're going to finish 17th probably, and look, if Spurs win, give me the parade. I'm there. I'm going to have a scarf tied around my head.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a big white smoke. Well, actually, no, they're illegal. I'm not going to have one of those, but it'll be good fun. I fully expect it to be a terrible game of football. I'm not going to lie, but as long as Spurs win, I don't mind. Like you say, I think, and I don't think this is just because Spurs are involved in this. I think this is one of the best finals I've seen in quite some time. I think it is. I think it's a coin toss as to who wins this. Honestly, I really do. I think maybe you have slightly more weighting purely because of Bruno Fernandes, and he has that kind of magical moment in him. I still kind of feel like Richarlison owes Tottenham some. Oh, this is my
Yeah.
weird rando feeling. The feeling in me waters is that Richarlison is yet to have a Spurs moment, and he usually has them. He's he had that bicycle kick for Brazil. He's had a good few moments. That goal that he scored for Everton, and he picks up the flare. That type of stuff. I think, I don't know. I kind of feel like Richarlison could play a part in this somewhat. Don't ask me why. And I dig him out all the time. I wanted to release him on a free not long ago. Not like me to have big blowhard opinions, Scott, as you know. But I don't know. I think it's mostly a coin toss. And I would say may the best team win, but no. May Tottenham Hotspur win. That's my final.
As it should be, should be. And I'll be thinking the same about United, but I can't. There's many reasons I could list for United winning. There's many reasons I could list for United losing and Tottenham winning. So we'll just have to wait and see. Can I deal with extra time and penalties? Oh
no, please, not just vile.
Awful stuff.
No, awful. I don't want it. Yeah. Scott, where can if people do want a fix of Manchester United content, where can they follow you?
You can get me on the socials at _Scott Saunders and listen to my pod where I moan about media coverage and that kind of thing. I'm not sure if that really sets me up in good stead for getting back into it if I ever want to go back into it. But hey, giving away the tricks of the trade. But the Promised Land, the Manchester United podcast, is on all of the audio platforms. It's on YouTube as well. TPL MUFC. But yeah. Thanks for having me on, mate. I always appreciate the time and catching up, and it's good to. United and Spurs are so parallel. Everything this season has been identical.
Bizarre,
it's crazy.
Yeah, bizarrely so. Always a pleasure, never a chore, mate. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Until don't enjoy Wednesday night. That's what I'll end it on.